Admiral Kyle Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the massive alien ships appear on his screens. They came out of nowhere, hundreds of dark vessels that blotted out the stars. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. The sight made his stomach turn cold. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," said Lieutenant Jenny Walsh from her station. Her voice was steady, but Kyle could see her hands shaking slightly on the controls. "Put it through," Kyle ordered. The main screen flickered and showed an alien, face that looked like a cross between a lizard and a hawk. Its eyes were golden and cold, with no trace of warmth or mercy. "I am War Commander Thexval of the Great Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. Its voice was deep and rumbling, like distant thunder. "You will listen carefully, humans. Your species has exactly 72 hours to surrender completely to Imperial rule." Kyle felt his jaw tighten. Around the bridge, his crew went silent. Everyone knew this day might come. But hoping and knowing were different things. The alien continued, "You will dismantle all military forces. You will hand over control of all worlds and colonies. You will provide tribute in resources and workers. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your pathetic civilization." The transmission ended abruptly. Kyle stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his communications officer. "Get me President Bennett on Mars. Emergency priority." On Mars, President Lisa Bennett was already in the emergency council chamber when Kyle's message arrived. The room was full of Earth's most powerful leaders, all looking grim. The red planet's sky was visible through the dome windows, reminding everyone how far humanity had spread among the stars. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Bennett said, her voice carrying across the room, "we all knew this day might come. The Zephyrian Empire has given us an ultimatum. 72 hours to surrender or face annihilation." Senator Paul Rogers, a thin man with gray hair, stood up quickly. "Madam President, we have to consider negotiation. These aliens have conquered dozens of other species. Their fleet is massive. We can't possibly win a war against them." General Amanda Foster slammed her hand on the table. "Negotiate? You want to negotiate our freedom away? These aliens don't want to talk, Senator. They want slaves. Better slaves than dead," Rogers shot back. "No," Bennett said firmly. "Not better. Never better." While the politicians argued, Dr. Kevin Park was 3 levels below in a secret laboratory. He stood before a massive computer screen showing star charts of human space. Each red dot represented a human world. Each red dot represented millions of lives. "Sir?" asked Dr. Rachel Stone, his assistant. She was young, barely 30, with worried eyes behind thick glasses. "Are we really going to do this?" Kevin didn't answer right away. Project Scorched Earth had been theoretical until today. Now it was becoming terrifyingly real. "Get Captain Adams on the line," he said finally. "Tell him to begin final preparations." Captain Troy Adams was already suited up when the call came. He stood in the cargo bay of his ship, looking at crates of special equipment. Each crate contained enough explosive power to crack a planet in half. His demolition team was the best in human space, but they had never faced a job like this. "You heard the man," Troy told his team. "We have 72 hours to wire every human world for destruction. If we surrender, we become slaves. If we fight and lose, we die anyway. But if we're going to die, we're taking our worlds with us. No alien empire gets to rule over human bones." His team nodded grimly. They were all volunteers. They all knew what this meant. Back on the Liberty, Admiral Martinez received another transmission. This time it was Captain Jenny Walsh from the scout ship Pathfinder. Her face appeared on his private screen and she looked frightened. "Admiral, the alien fleet is moving. They're not waiting for our answer. Ships are heading toward New Portland, Kepler Station and Titan's Edge. They're going to attack our outer colonies first." Kyle closed his eyes for a moment. The Zephyrians were going to make their point with blood. "How long until they reach the colonies?" 18 hours, sir." "Understood. Continue your surveillance and stay hidden." On Mars, the emergency session was still going. President Bennett listened to report after report. The alien fleet had over 10,000 ships. Humanity had less than 800. The math was simple and brutal. "What about evacuation?" asked Maria Santos, the logistics coordinator. "We could move civilians to the outer rim, beyond their reach." "For how long?" General Foster replied. "They'll find us eventually. Running just delays the inevitable." Bennett stood up slowly. The room fell silent. "I've made my decision," she said. "We will not surrender. We will not kneel to any empire, no matter how powerful. Dr. Park, you have authorization to proceed with Project Scorched Earth." Several people in the room went pale. They all knew what that meant. If humanity couldn't be free, then humanity would choose to die free. "Madam President," Senator Rogers said weakly, "you're talking about destroying our own worlds, our own people." "Our people will be evacuated first," Bennett replied. "But yes, if necessary, we will turn our worlds to ash before we let aliens rule them. We are human beings, not cattle to be herded." Dr. Park received the authorization code on his secure terminal. His hands trembled as he entered it into the system. Across human space, hidden charges began their final arming sequence. On 47 worlds, countdown timers started ticking. In the deepest bunkers of Earth, generation ships that had been secretly prepared for decades began loading supplies. Families said goodbye to homes they might never see again. Children asked questions their parents couldn't answer. President Bennett prepared for her address to humanity. In a few hours, every human being in the galaxy would know that their leaders had chosen death over slavery. She hoped they would understand. She hoped they would forgive her. The countdown had begun. 72 hours to freedom or oblivion. War Commander Thexval stood in his command center, staring at the reports from his intelligence officers. His golden eyes narrowed with confusion and growing anger. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. "They refuse?" he asked his aide, a smaller Zephyrian named Krevtos. "These humans actually refuse our generous offer of surrender?" "Yes, War Commander. Their leader sent a message saying they will never kneel to any empire." Thexval's claws scraped against the metal table. Every species said that at first, the proud ones always did. But when the killing started, they changed their minds quickly enough. Humans would be no different. "Order strikes on 3 of their outer colonies," he commanded. "Nothing too destructive, just enough to show them what happens to those who defy the Empire. They will beg for mercy within days." The first attack came at New Portland, a farming colony on the edge of human space. Colonel Jake Miller was eating breakfast when the alarm started screaming. He ran to the command center, still wearing his pajama shirt under his uniform jacket. "How many ships?" he asked his communications officer. 12, sir. They're demanding our surrender." Jake looked out the window at the peaceful farms below. Families were probably just waking up, getting ready for another normal day. "Tell them to go to hell," he said quietly. The Zephyrian ships opened fire 10 minutes later. But instead of the quick victory they expected, they found humans who fought like cornered animals. Jake had spent months preparing for this day. Every building had been turned into a fortress. Every farmer had been trained to fight. When the alien soldiers landed, they walked into a nightmare. Humans attacked from sewers, from rooftops, from hidden bunkers. They used bombs made from farm equipment. They turned irrigation systems into traps. The aliens had better weapons, but the humans knew every inch of their world. At Kepler Station, Commander Lisa Hayes watched the enemy ships approach on her screens. Kepler was a space station, not a planet, which gave her different options. As soon as the first alien ship docked, she began the evacuation protocol. "All civilians to the escape pods," she ordered over the intercom. "This is not a drill. All civilians evacuate immediately." But evacuation was only part of her plan. As the last civilian pod launched, Lisa began the station's self-destruction sequence. If the aliens wanted Kepler Station, they could have it. As a pile of burning metal, the Zephyrian boarding party found empty corridors and ticking bombs. The station exploded just as their ships were docking, taking 3 alien vessels with it into the void. On the mining world of Titan's Edge, the story was similar. The human defenders used mining charges to collapse tunnels on alien soldiers. They flooded mine shafts with poisonous gases. They turned the planet's own resources into weapons. War Commander Thexval stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. 3 simple attacks on weak colonies had cost him over 500 soldiers, and 6 ships. This was not how conquest was supposed to work. Meanwhile, Dr. Kevin Park worked frantically in his secret laboratory. The quantum charges were almost ready, but time was running short. Each charge had to be perfectly calibrated to destroy a planet's core without warning. "How many worlds are ready?" he asked Dr. Rachel Stone. 32 so far, she replied, not looking up from her calculations. "But sir, the synchronization is incredibly complex. If even one charge fails to detonate at the right moment, the whole plan could fall apart." Captain Troy Adams and his demolition teams were working around the clock. They moved from world to world in unmarked ships, installing charges deep underground. Each installation took hours of dangerous work in cramped spaces, thousands of feet below the surface. "Another one done," Troy reported to Dr. Park after finishing the charges on Europa Colony. "But the aliens are getting suspicious. They're starting to patrol the systems more heavily." "How many left?" Park asked. 15 worlds. "We can do it, but it's going to be tight." On Earth, the evacuation was beginning in secret. Maria Santos coordinated the movement of millions of people to hidden bunkers and underground cities. The operation had to look normal from space, so people left their homes in small groups over several days. "We need to keep up appearances," Maria explained to her staff. "If the aliens realize we're evacuating, they'll know something is wrong. Everyone has to act like nothing is happening." Children went to school as normal, then disappeared into hidden tunnels. Workers reported to their jobs, then slipped away to evacuation points. Families packed only what they could carry, leaving behind everything else they had ever owned. Admiral Kyle Martinez prepared for humanity's first real space battle against the Empire. His fleet was tiny compared to the alien armada, but he had advantages. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable. His crews knew they were fighting for their homes. "Remember," he told his captains over the secure channel, "we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to buy time. Every minute we keep them busy is another minute for the evacuation and for Project Scorched Earth." Captain Jenny Walsh had been promoted to command her own squadron of scout ships. Her job was to harass alien supply lines and gather intelligence. She led her ships in lightning-fast attacks on enemy transports, then vanished into asteroid fields before the aliens could respond. "Hit and run," she told her pilots. "We sting them and disappear, make them angry, make them sloppy, but most importantly, make them slow." The Battle of Proxima began at dawn on the second day of the war. Admiral Martinez led his 800 ships against a Zephyrian advance force of 2,000. The human ships darted between the massive alien vessels like angry wasps, firing everything they had. The UES Liberty took heavy damage early in the fight, but Kyle kept her in the battle. Around him, human ships exploded one by one, but they took alien vessels with them. Every Zephyrian ship destroyed was one less ship that could threaten human worlds. "Sir, we need to retreat," his tactical officer reported. "We've lost half our ships." "Not yet," Kyle replied grimly. "We hold this line until the last ship." When the Liberty finally limped away from Proxima, only 300 human ships remained. But the aliens had lost over 400 vessels. More importantly, the battle had delayed the main alien fleet by crucial hours. War Commander Thexval was no longer confused. He was furious. These humans fought with a desperation he had never encountered. They seemed to prefer death to surrender, which made no sense to his military mind. "Bring the main fleet," he ordered. "All of it. We will crush these insects once and for all." As alien reinforcements poured into human space, the countdown continued. Project Scorched Earth was almost ready. The evacuation was almost complete, and humanity was almost out of time. The main Zephyrian fleet arrived like a storm of metal and death. War Commander Thexval brought 5,000 ships, enough firepower to crack planets in half. He was done playing games with these stubborn humans. Begin systematic bombardment of all human colonies, he ordered from his flagship. Show them what happens when insects defy the Empire. The attacks began at dawn on the colony of New Haven. Thexval expected to see millions of terrified humans begging for mercy on his screens. Instead, his targeting computers showed empty cities, streets with no people, buildings with no life, signs. Where are they? He demanded of his intelligence officer. Unknown, War Commander. The colonies appear to be completely evacuated. Thexval's golden eyes narrowed. Find them. Search every building, every underground tunnel, every cave. Humans do not simply vanish. But the humans had vanished. On world after world, the Zephyrian forces found the same thing. Ghost towns with meals still warm on tables, vehicles abandoned, in perfect working order, and not a single living person anywhere. Captain Jenny Walsh watched the alien confusion from her hidden scout ship. She was now commanding a group of stealth vessels, striking at enemy supply convoys wherever she found them. Her latest target was a fuel transport heading toward the colony of Riverside. Remember, we hit fast and disappear, she told her squadron over the radio. Make them think we have more ships than we really do. The attack was perfect. Jenny's ships swooped out of an asteroid field, destroyed the transport, and vanished before the escorts could react. But as she watched the alien ship searching for her, she felt a cold weight in her stomach. These hit-and-run attacks were just delaying the inevitable. Dr. Kevin Park stood in his laboratory, staring at the activation console for Project Scorched, Earth. The quantum charges were installed on all 47 human worlds. The synchronization was perfect. One button press would turn humanity's entire civilization into ash and fire. Sir? Dr. Rachel Stone approached him carefully. The President wants to see you in the briefing room. Kevin nodded and walked slowly down the corridor. Each step felt heavier than the last. When he entered the briefing room, he found President Bennett, General Foster, and several other leaders waiting for him. Doctor, President Bennett said quietly, I need you to explain to me exactly what we're about to do. Kevin cleared his throat. The quantum charges are placed in the cores of all our worlds. When activated, they will cause simultaneous nuclear reactions that will destroy the planets completely. Nothing will survive. No cities, no forests, no oceans, just dead rock floating in space. And our people. Most are already evacuated to the generation ships and hidden bases, but some worlds still have emergency crews maintaining the illusion that they're occupied. Those people... Kevin's voice trailed off. General Foster leaned forward. How many people will we lose? Maybe 50,000 across all worlds. They're volunteers who know the risks. The room went silent. Finally, President Bennett spoke. Doctor, I want you to tell me honestly. Is there any other way? Kevin looked around the room at the tired faces of humanity's leaders. Ma'am, Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez has new intelligence about what the aliens plan for us. Maybe she should explain. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Rodriguez stood up. She was a small woman with dark hair and tired eyes. She had been working for days without sleep, decoding alien communications. The Zephyrians don't just want us to surrender, she said. They want to breed us like animals. Their files show detailed plans for human breeding programs. They plan to separate families, use our children as soldiers, and turn our adults into slaves for dangerous work. They don't see us as people. To them, we're just another species to be used up and thrown away. Several people in the room looked sick. President Bennett closed her eyes for a moment. There's more, Rodriguez continued. They plan to wipe out our culture completely. No human languages, no human history, no human art. They want to erase everything that makes us human. Dr. Park felt his stomach turn. So if we surrender, we don't just lose our freedom. We lose our humanity itself. Exactly. On the generation ship Exodus, Captain Derek Stone was loading the last of the civilian refugees. The ship was designed to carry 50,000 people, but they had packed in nearly twice that number. Families huddled together in overcrowded compartments, carrying only what they could hold. Captain, his first officer reported, we're receiving evacuation signals from the Mars colonies. The aliens are getting close. Derek looked out at the red planet where his sister Rachel was still working on the final preparations for Project Scorched Earth. How long until we're ready to depart? 6 hours, sir. We may not have 6 hours. War Commander Thexval was growing more frustrated by the hour. His forces had occupied 15 human worlds and found them all empty. Worse, his supply lines were under constant attack by small groups of human ships that appeared and vanished like ghosts. War Commander, his aide reported, we're detecting large energy signatures from several human worlds. It appears they're powering up some kind of defensive systems. Defensive systems? Thexval's voice was dangerous. What kind of defensive systems? Unknown, sir. The energy readings are unlike anything in our database. Thexval made a decision that would haunt him forever. Accelerate the attack schedule. I want our main fleet at Earth within 12 hours. If the humans want to play games, we'll end this at their homeworld. Back on Earth, the final evacuations were reaching critical stages. Maria Santos coordinated the movement of millions of people into hidden underground cities that had been prepared in secret for decades. The cities were deep enough to survive even nuclear bombardment, stocked with enough supplies to last for years. How many people are still on the surface? She asked her assistant. About 2 million, mostly essential personnel keeping up appearances. Maria looked at the evacuation schedules. They needed at least another day to get those people to safety. But intelligence reports showed the alien main fleet was already moving toward Earth. Captain Troy Adams finished installing the last quantum charge on the agricultural world of Green Valley. As he climbed out of the deep shaft, he looked around at the empty farms and silent towns. This world had fed millions of people across human space. In a few hours, it might be nothing but radioactive dust. All charges are active, he reported to Dr. Park. We're ready to proceed. Understood. Return to base immediately. As Troy's ship lifted off from Green Valley, he wondered if he would ever see a human world again. The generation ships were headed for the dark spaces between stars where they could hide and rebuild. But would they ever have planets to call home again? Dr. Park returned to his laboratory and found President Bennett waiting for him. She stood alone in front of the activation console, staring at the single red button that would end human civilization as they knew it. Madam President? Kevin, do you have children? Yes, ma'am. 2 daughters. Are they safe? On a generation ship, heading for the outer rim. Bennett nodded slowly. I keep thinking about all the children who will grow up never having seen Earth, never having walked on grass or breathed real air. We're not just destroying our worlds, Kevin. We're destroying their future. No, ma'am, Kevin said quietly. We're giving them a future. Maybe not the one we planned, but a future where they're free. The communication console chimed. Admiral Martinez's voice came through, tired and grim. Madam President, the alien main fleet has reached the outer system. They'll be at Earth in 8 hours. I can delay them for maybe 2 hours with what's left of our fleet, but that's all. President Bennett looked at the red button one more time. Dr. Park, how long do we need for final evacuation? 6 hours minimum. Then we're cutting it very close. She turned to face him. Kevin, I want you to know that what we're about to do isn't murder. It's the hardest choice any leader has ever had to make. But it's still a choice. We're choosing freedom over slavery, death over dishonor. I understand, ma'am. I hope our children will understand too. The final day began with the massive Zephyrian fleet appearing around Earth like a metal ring of death. War Commander Thexval stood on his command bridge, looking down at the blue and green world that had spawned this troublesome species. Send them our final demand, he ordered. Total surrender in 1 hour, or we begin the complete destruction of their home world. On the hidden lunar base, President Bennett received the message while standing next to Dr. Park's activation console. The red button seemed to glow in the dim light, waiting for the decision that would change everything. 1 hour, she said quietly to General Foster. How many people are still on Earth? About 500,000. Essential personnel keeping the power grids running and maintaining the illusion that the planet is still occupied. Bennett closed her eyes. 500,000 volunteers who knew they might die to keep the plan working. Can we get them out? Not in 1 hour, ma'am. The evacuation transports need at least 3 more hours. Admiral Kyle Martinez led humanity's last fleet toward the Zephyrian Armada. He had only 200 ships left, facing an enemy force of 5,000. The math was simple and brutal, but math had never stopped humans before. "This is Admiral Martinez to all ships," he broadcast on the fleet channel. "Today we fight not to win, but to buy time. Every minute we keep these aliens busy is another minute for our people to reach safety. Make every shot count." The space battle began as Earth's sun reached its highest point. Human ships darted between the massive alien vessels like angry insects, their smaller size allowing them to dodge the heavy weapons that could crack planets. The UES Liberty led the charge, its guns blazing. Captain Jenny Walsh commanded a squadron of the fastest human ships. Her job was to create chaos in the alien formation, making them think the human fleet was larger than it really was. She led her ships in wild spirals around the enemy vessels, firing and vanishing into the shadows of larger ships. "Stay close to their hulls," she told her pilots. "Their big guns can't target us if we're right next to them." But the aliens had learned from their earlier fights. War Commander Thexval had brought smaller, faster ships specifically to deal with human tactics. Soon the space around Earth was filled with explosions as human ships died one by one. On the surface of Earth, Thexval's ground forces were landing in major cities. Field Marshal Krevtos led the assault on what used to be New York. His troops expected fierce resistance, but instead found empty streets and silent buildings. "Where is everyone?" Krevtos demanded as his soldiers reported empty building after empty building. His communications officer was equally confused. "Sir, the entire city appears to be evacuated. We're detecting no life signs anywhere." Krevtos walked through the empty streets, his boots echoing off silent buildings. Cars sat abandoned with their doors open. Restaurants had plates of food, still on the tables, but no one to eat them. It was like the entire human population had simply vanished. "Check the underground areas," he ordered. "Humans are good at hiding." But the underground areas were empty too. The subways, the sewers, the basements, all empty. The aliens found a world that looked lived in, but had no living people anywhere. In the deep lunar bunker, Dr. Kevin Park was making final preparations. All 47 quantum charges were armed and ready. The synchronization was perfect. One button press would turn every human world into a ball of nuclear fire. "Sir," Dr. Rachel Stone called from her monitoring station, "I'm getting reports from the generation ships. They're all clear of the blast zones and ready to jump to hyperspace." Kevin nodded and opened a secure channel to President Bennett. "Madam President, we're ready to proceed. All charges are armed. All civilian ships are at safe distance." "What about the volunteers still on the planets?" Kevin's voice was heavy. "They know the risks, ma'am. They volunteered to stay behind to maintain the illusion. Without them, the aliens would have realized what we were planning." Bennett looked around the command bunker at the faces of humanity's remaining leadership. These people would make the hardest decision in human history, and they would have to live with it forever. Captain Derek Stone piloted the generation ship Exodus away from Mars, carrying nearly 100,000 refugees toward the edge of the solar system. Through the ship's windows, families looked back at the red planet where their ancestors had lived and worked for generations. "Daddy, when can we go home?" asked a little girl in the crowded passenger section. Her father, a man named Bill Cooper, held her close and tried not to cry. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe never." The space battle around Earth was reaching its climax. Admiral Martinez watched his fleet shrink from 200 ships to less than 50. The UES Liberty was badly damaged, with fires burning on 3 decks, but Kyle kept her in the fight. "Sir, we need to retreat," his tactical officer begged. "We can't hold them much longer." "Not yet," Kyle replied through gritted teeth. "We hold until the president gives the word." Captain Troy Adams was coordinating the final evacuation of volunteers from the planetary surface. His transport ships darted between alien patrols, picking up the last humans willing to leave their worlds behind. "That's the last group from Europa colony," he reported to Dr. Park. "All volunteers are clear except for the skeleton crews maintaining essential systems. Those skeleton crews, maybe 10,000 people scattered across 47 worlds, were the true heroes of this day." They stayed at their posts, keeping the lights on and the computers running, making the aliens think the planets were still inhabited. They knew that when the button was pressed, they would die with their worlds. War Commander Thexval was growing suspicious. His forces had occupied the major cities of Earth and found them empty. His scans showed power consumption consistent, with normal population levels but no actual people anywhere. Something is wrong, he told his aide. This planet should have billions of inhabitants. Where are they? Perhaps they are hiding in underground shelters. Then we dig them out. Begin. Deep scans of the entire planet find these humans. On the lunar base, the deep scans triggered alarms on Dr. Park's monitoring system. Madam President, the aliens are scanning for underground installations. They'll find our evacuation bunkers within the hour. President Bennett stared at the red button. 500,000 people were still in those bunkers, including children and elderly who couldn't make the journey to the generation ships. If the aliens found them, how long until all our ships are clear of the blast zones? She asked. 15 minutes for the last transport, Dr. Stone reported. Bennett opened a communication channel to Admiral Martinez. Kyle, you need to pull back now. We're about to proceed with the final option. Understood, Madam President. It's been an honor serving with you. The remaining human ships began their retreat, but the aliens followed. Thexval sensed that something important was about to happen, and he was determined not to let the humans escape. In the generation ship cargo holds, human families huddled together and waited. They could see the flashes of the space battle through small windows, each flash representing another human ship dying to buy them time. Maria Santos coordinated the final evacuation procedures from her command post on the generation ship Hope. All civilian transports are clear, she reported. We're ready for hyperspace jump on your command. Dr. Park looked at President Bennett. Ma'am, we're as ready as we'll ever be. The charges are synchronized. The civilian ships are clear. Our military is retreating to minimum safe distance. Bennett reached for the communication system one final time. She opened a channel to broadcast across all human space. To every ship, every bunker, every person who was about to lose their home. My fellow humans, she began, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. In a few moments, we will make a choice that no species in galactic history has ever made. We choose freedom over slavery. We choose death over dishonor. We choose to rule over ashes rather than serve in paradise. She paused, looking around at the faces of the leaders who would share this burden forever. We do this not in anger, but in love. Love for our children, who will grow up free among the stars. Love for the idea that some things are worth more than life itself. The aliens can take our worlds, but they cannot take our souls. Bennett's hand moved toward the red button. In 15 seconds, 47 human worlds would die, but humanity itself would live forever among the stars, free and unbroken. We are human, she said softly. We bow to no empire. She pressed the button. The destruction began exactly at noon, Earth time. Across 47 star systems, quantum charges buried deep in planetary cores exploded simultaneously. The effect was instant and total. Earth died first. The blue and green world that had given birth to humanity cracked like an egg, its surface turning to molten fire. The explosion was so bright that Zephyrian soldiers on the surface were vaporized before they could even scream. War Commander Thexval watched in horror as the planet he was trying to conquer simply ceased to exist. Mars followed seconds later, its red surface becoming a ball of white-hot plasma. Then Europa, with its hidden oceans. Then New Portland, where Colonel Jake Miller had made his last stand. One by one, every human world died in nuclear fire. The Zephyrian fleet around Earth was caught completely by surprise. Ships too close to the planet were destroyed by the explosion. Others were damaged by the massive wave of radiation that swept outward from where Earth used to be. In 30 seconds, the Empire lost over 2,000 ships and hundreds of thousands of soldiers. War Commander Thexval barely escaped in his damaged flagship. His golden eyes stared at the empty space where Earth had been, trying to understand what had just happened. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. They destroyed their own worlds, he whispered to his aide. They killed themselves rather than serve the Empire. The aide, a young Zephyrian named Veltar, looked equally shocked. War Commander, our casualty reports are coming in. We've lost nearly half our invasion force. Thexaval said nothing. He was thinking about the human leader's final message, broadcast just before the explosions. We choose to rule over ashes, rather than serve in paradise. What kind of species made that choice? The news of humanity's self-destruction spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the neutral world of Kalos Prime, representatives from dozens of species gathered in emergency session. Never before had a species chosen complete annihilation over surrender. Ambassador Zexalon of the Altarian Republic stood before the Galactic Council. What we have witnessed today changes everything, he said in his deep, rumbling voice. The humans have shown us that death is preferable to slavery. How can any of us ever kneel to the Empire again? Other representatives murmured agreement. The Centauri Federation's ambassador requested an immediate withdrawal from all imperial treaties. The Vegan Confederacy began planning for armed rebellion. Far from the destruction, Captain Jenny Walsh commanded one of the few surviving human warships. She had escaped the Earth system just before the explosions, her ship loaded with refugees from the lunar evacuation. Now she floated in the darkness between stars, looking at a galaxy that suddenly seemed very different. Captain, her communications officer reported, we're receiving transmissions from the generation ships. They're requesting orders. Jenny opened a channel to the scattered human fleet. Hundreds of ships carrying the last survivors of humanity waited for someone to tell them what to do next. She took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. This is Captain Walsh of the UES Pathfinder. I know you're all scared. I know you've lost everything. But listen to me carefully. We are still here. We are still free. And we are still human. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. The Empire destroyed our worlds, but they did not destroy us. We carry our civilization in our hearts, in our memories, in our children. Today we became something new. We became the humans who chose freedom over slavery, death over dishonor. In the generation ship Exodus, families listened to her words in crowded passenger compartments. Children who would never see Earth sat next to their parents trying to understand what had happened to their home. What happens now? Asked Bill Cooper, still holding his young daughter. Captain Derek Stone, who commanded the Exodus, answered over the ship's intercom. Now we find a new home, somewhere beyond the Empire's reach, somewhere we can rebuild and remember. The human fleet began its long journey toward the galactic rim, where rogue planets and hidden star systems offered refuge from Imperial patrols. It would take years to find a safe haven, but humans had always been good at surviving. Dr. Kevin Park sat in his laboratory aboard the research vessel Discovery, staring at data screens that showed empty space where human worlds used to be. The CR quantum charges had worked perfectly. Every planet had been completely destroyed, leaving nothing but radioactive debris floating in space. Any regrets? Asked Dr. Rachel Stone, who sat beside him. Kevin thought for a long moment. About the choice? No. About the necessity of making it? Every day for the rest of my life. War Commander Thexval returned to the Zephyrian homeworld in disgrace. The High Command was furious. They had lost thousands of ships and gained nothing. Worse, the human example was inspiring rebellions across the Empire. You failed completely, High Admiral Mordak told him in the Judgment Chamber. Not only did you fail to conquer the humans, you gave our enemies a symbol to rally around. The humans chose to die rather than serve, Thexval replied. How do you conquer people who prefer death to surrender? You find a way, or you find a new career. But finding a way was proving impossible. Across the Empire, species that had served for generations were beginning to rebel. The Altarian Republic declared independence and began arming for war. The Centauri Federation withdrew from Imperial space entirely. The Vegan Confederacy started building ships designed specifically to fight Zephyrian forces. Captain Troy Adams, led a small fleet of human ships in the first mission beyond the galactic rim. They found a system with 3 rogue planets, worlds that had been thrown out of their original star systems and now drifted in the darkness between stars. The planets were cold and lifeless, but they had resources that could be mined. "It's not much," he reported back to the generation ships. "But it's a start." The human diaspora began to spread across the dark spaces of the galaxy. Some groups settled on asteroids and built underground cities. Others found dead worlds that could be terraformed over generations. A few chose to remain nomadic, living permanently on their ships and visiting other settlements for trade. 5 years after the destruction of human space, Captain Amy Rodriguez received an encrypted message while her ship orbited a hidden base in the Andromeda Spiral. The message was from the Altarian Republic, and it contained a simple request: help. "The Altarians are fighting for their independence," she told her crew. "They're asking for human assistance." Her tactical officer, a young man named Pete Williams, looked confused. "But Captain, we barely have enough ships to protect ourselves. How can we help fight the Empire?" Amy smiled grimly. "Because we know something the Empire doesn't understand. We know how to fight when you have nothing left to lose." The human fleet emerged from hiding for the first time since the destruction of their worlds. Their ships were small and battered, their crews numbered in the thousands rather than millions. But they carried something the galaxy had never seen before: the knowledge that freedom was worth any price. The Battle of Altair lasted 3 days. Human ships fought alongside Altarian rebels against the Imperial fleet. The humans used tactics they had learned in their desperate last battles: hit and run attacks, using asteroids for cover, turning their enemies' size against them. When the battle ended, the Imperial fleet was in full retreat. The Altarian Republic was free, and the galaxy had learned an important lesson. The humans were back. Captain Jenny Walsh, now Admiral of the Human Exile Fleet, stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked out at the stars. Her people had lost their worlds, but they had gained something more precious: the respect of every oppressed species in the galaxy. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving requests for assistance from 17 different systems. Everyone wants human help in fighting the Empire." Jenny nodded. "Signal the fleet, we have work to do." The Empire had thought they were destroying humanity when they forced the choice between slavery and death. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous: a people with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Humanity had lost their worlds, but gained the stars themselves. And in the darkness between those stars, they would build something the galaxy had never seen: a civilization based not on conquest, but on the simple idea that freedom was worth any sacrifice. The Empire would learn, too late, that some fires burn brighter when you try to put them out.